Hey everyone, Dan here, Crypto Capital Venture, August 25th, 2018. I hope you're having an awesome day. In this video, we're going to talk about the bullish upside, but possibly the bearish short-term downside. I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. But before we do, I want to go over two quick clips of previous videos in the last 2 months. We've done, in my opinion, an awesome job in being prepared for the movement of Bitcoin. Let's take a look at what I'm talking about. And this is kind of what I've been talking about. Basically, is kind of creating a new lower high somewhere in that area. So that was June 27th at around $6,100. And you see I charted a possible lower high on Bitcoin right around the $8,000 mark. And yes, we did get that. And then the next video I want to show you is when we were at around $8,100, what we were looking for. We're at this critical time where we're just kind of like, well, are we going to break out? Are we going to break this previous lower high at around 10,000? That's what everybody wants. That's what everybody's tracking. That's what everybody's relying on the ETFs to do. Everybody's pretty much like, we've been in this bear market long enough, get me out of here. But what if we don't? What if we don't have that breakout? What if we don't have new highs happening in the short term? Well, on the downside, we might have a bounce back down. So before even talking about new lows, right down here in that $5,000 to $6,000 area, I think one of the biggest things we'll track if it happened would be support at this previous low right here, to really see if we have a reverse head and shoulders in play. So there you go. We talked about the reverse head and shoulders. We were trading at around $8,100 at the time. And right now on the weekly, the reverse head and shoulders is very much in play. So this is that bullish long-term area, this long-term indicator and pattern that everybody is really hoping for, right? This breakout, this final bottom in Bitcoin, the reverse head and shoulders could be part of that story. And you can see it on the weekly. And we can track this, and we'll break it down. We'll go to the daily next and then the 4 hour, and we'll start talking about possibly, even if we get a reverse head and shoulders and a bullish breakout, why there might be some downside in terms of Bitcoin, at least on the short term, especially on the 4 hour. You'll see what I'm talking about. But the videos we just saw, this is exactly what we do over here on this channel, is we kind of follow the long-term trends of Bitcoin, and we look for that possible next move so that we can anticipate it happening. We never say it's definitely going to happen, but it's a strong likelihood that it will in a continued pattern. So in this falling wedge with Bitcoin, which you see on the screen on the weekly, obviously when we were down here and starting to get some momentum up, it wasn't rocket science to say, hey, we might have a new lower high that we might be approaching. But what's so powerful about it is the fact that in that anticipation, we're talking about like 45% gains to be prepared for. If you're a trader, that's a lot. That's a lot of money that you can make. And then on the downside, and this is where the approach really is strong for me, is when we were right around $8,100, probably right around here, we talked about revisiting a low, right? So that's 25% losses from that area. And in telling that low, that story of that low, that's where we're anticipating this weekly reverse head and shoulders. So you see it on the screen right now. It's this downward falling trend line on the lower highs, and then these lower lows. So there's as of right now, this can change, but right now there is a strong indicator on Bitcoin on the weekly and in this pattern, to say that right now we did see that support. I was a little bit lower than what I was saying in that video. Probably right around here we were looking for support, but we saw support, right around here in the $6,000 to $6,100 area. And why that's so critical and important is the fact that we didn't break this previous lower low, and that is extremely important in terms of this reverse head and shoulders actually forming and confirming itself. Because if we broke the lower low, then obviously there is no reverse head and shoulders in play. But right now it is. And we have this last couple of weeks of momentum forming that possible right shoulder. But on the shorter term, which is what I said, I just want to throw caution out there, not to get too bullish, not to, just be careful about FOMOing into anything. Because right now, even though we are looking short-term bullish and we've had a nice little bounce off of this area, we have this possible formation of this right shoulder. There's a lot of similarities to this long-term downtrend, but more specifically, each of these short-term wedges. So in forming this last lower low that we had, right, besides this one, then we had this one, in these wedges of lower lows and lower highs, we're seeing a very similar pattern in that right now we could just be setting up in this current wedge a lower high right at this area. So on the daily chart, what to look out for right now would be resistance really where it is right now, right at this 50 EMA, and also right in this on the stock RSI. If you check out the stock RSI, pretty overbought right now. And I bring that up just because if you look at these previous wedges on our way down to previous lower lows, you see as we kind of approach and we have that pullback to that 50 EMA, you can see on the stock RSI also in that same overbought area. So right now, like literally today, I would say be slightly careful that this uptrend that we've had might not continue as bullishly as we all want it to. Obviously, we all want Bitcoin just to kind of rocket, right? We do, but just be careful and anticipate the downside. So what to look out for on the downside would simply be checking out to see if we get support right here at this previous area around 50, and I guess I'll zoom in a little bit. And I think I have it charted on the 4 hour, but let's start here on the daily. So right now on the daily, if we do have a pullback, the area to be very mindful of is right there in that 50, I guess call it $5,900 area. That's the area we don't want to break, mainly because it's the previous low of this this wedge that we're in right now, this falling wedge. So besides that area, the next area to look out for would simply be slightly below that, right around 57.70, right in that area, because that is the previous lower low in this long-term downtrend of Bitcoin. So we don't want to approach that area because then we're probably going to see those significant lower lows that we were talking about in that first video that I referenced. So right now in the 4 hour, what we can look for in terms of a slight pullback, but it doesn't have to be a bad pullback. It can be a continued uptrend that we're in right now, would be like maybe even a 10% move, right? Tomorrow, today, the next day, besides, you know, the next few days, we might see like possibly a 10% pullback or so. And the reason I say that is simply because in this pattern of bottoms, what you'll see and you'll notice if you look at this last bottom that we had back here in this uptrend, right? You notice these pullbacks from these 200 EMAs. And it happens very often, especially at bottom. So this pullback that we had back in the beginning of July was around a 10% pullback from that 200 EMA. But I just want to say, and you can see 10% right around there. I just want to say that even though we had that 10% pullback, right, and you can really see it on the daily chart right here, there's that 10% pullback that we just showed on the 4 hour on the daily. But something just to, you know, notice is that it wasn't a bad pullback. It was very necessary. We had that snapback to the 50 EMA and we came down as we usually do, but it was just a higher low from that bottom. So right now, this could be an extremely bullish move for Bitcoin, even a 10% pullback back to this trend line, right? And then it would just be a higher low to continue this uptrend and to really start forming this inverse head and shoulders on the weekly chart, which is where we really started this video. So that's kind of where it starts, and it kind of circles all the way back around, and it's really what to look for and anticipate. So the moral of the story really is, while we're talking about this, is yes, Bitcoin can go up. Yes, Bitcoin can go down. But in terms of the movement of Bitcoin currently, how is your portfolio? That's always the question to ask. Are you ready to sit back and relax if this reverse head and shoulders really comes to fruition? Are you comfortable with your position? If you're not and you want to accumulate, are you comfortable accumulating at these levels if we continue this downtrend? And I say this because on the daily chart, which is kind of getting messy, but I want to just point this out. Right now, we could have a bearish scenario playing out where we're seeing this resistance on the daily at the 50 EMA right here. And right now in this long-term falling wedge, this is just a lower high on Bitcoin where we're gonna start seeing lower lows in this wedge. So possible lower high and then a lower low, which is really a lower low in the long-term downtrend of Bitcoin. So be careful for that scenario. So obviously there's a ton of charting on the screen right now, and I'm not calling for one way or another, but what I am doing is really telling you and recommending that we all just be prepared for either or, because there's nothing more that we can do. Nobody knows exactly what will happen. If you ask me what I think will happen, right now I think that we might have a nice little run to form a possible lower high in Bitcoin. I'm not so convinced at this point that this reverse head and shoulders is going to play out and confirm a formation where we actually get a breakout and break these previous highs just yet. That's just my opinion. I could be completely wrong, and I would be happy to be wrong. So those are my thoughts on Bitcoin right now. These are some things to look out for. But please, I would say anticipate lower lows. That's probably the most powerful anticipation you can have, because that sets you up for opportunity if you are keen on accumulation. So that's kind of my outlook on the markets right now. I could be wrong about everything, and I would love nothing more to just sit back, relax, and watch Bitcoin go to the moon. Let me know your thoughts. I really appreciate you coming out, hanging out on this Saturday. I hope you have a great weekend. I will see you in the next video, and God bless.